Hello team and welcome back to ERU. That's right, the football has recommenced and as has this show. Joining me, as ever, it's my liege, Patrick Van Straten. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you? How was your weekend?
It's been okay. I got a little bit tipsy on a park, able to enjoy the greenery for the first time in a while. What about yourself?
I also got tipsy and went to the park, but they were separate.
Nice. Okay, love that. Responsible drinking is encouraged by all members of Team EFD. Right, let's get into German football then, because, like I said, it's back. It's given us a reason to do this show. Normally, we ask for your winners and losers, don't we? But it felt a little bit pointless, given there's only one league. We would have had 50 suggestions for Borussia Dortmund, 50 suggestions for Bayern Munich. So we picked our own. Sorry to take that element out of it, but we did. Pato, Borussia Dortmund are kicking us off this week as our solitary winner. We're going to do one winner, one loser and a star of the week. We'll, of course, be fleshing this out in the coming weeks as the football slowly, incrementally returns. But Dortmund feel like a good place to start.
Yeah, well, they kept pressure on Bayern Munich after thrashing Schalke 4-0 in front of an empty Westfalenstadion in the Revier derby. This was probably the pick of the weekend's fixtures as the Bundesliga recommenced. But at the beginning of the game, everyone looked a little bit rusty. It actually took Dortmund a bit of time to get into the groove, but an early goal from Erling Haaland helped, and they followed that up with strikes from Torgan Hazard and a double for Raf Guerreiro to make the result secure. Haaland's goal was his 37th of the season, coming after lovely work from Julian Brandt and Hazard, a little flick from Brandt round the corner, and then a first-time whipped cross in from Hazard, which Haaland finished with a nice kind of open foot. Keeper left absolutely helpless. That meant that Haaland now has 10 goals in 9 Bundesliga games, just 6 starts in there. And in fact, he's scored at least 10 goals in 3 separate competitions this season. That's the Austrian Bundesliga, the German Bundesliga, and the Champions League. Now, obviously, this was a pretty straightforward result for Dortmund, but XG suggests it could maybe have been a bit closer if they hadn't been at the races finishing-wise. They had 11 shots with 4 on target to Schalke's 10 shots and 3 on target. XG at just 1.5 to 0.4. But when your first 3 shots on target all go in, you don't particularly need to try in the second half. Now, it's been 66 days after their previous fixture, but Dortmund are still on a hot run. 8 wins in their last 9 matches, 31 goals in that time. The perfect start for them as they look to put pressure on Bayern going into the back end of the season.
Well, talking of stars, David Wagner got off to a pretty good start, didn't he? He had a honeymoon period at Schalke that has firmly ended. His side's terrible form of late continues. Started where they left off pretty much post-lockdown. So they've only won 1 of their last 11 league games now since December the 15th, which was a 2-0 victory over Gladbach, actually. Losing 4 of those, drawing the rest. And when they lose, they tend to lose big. This Schalke side is shipping goals at the moment. 4 of those defeats, the aforementioned defeats, actually saw them concede 17 goals. So Dortmund smelt blood when they got 1 early, didn't they? The result sees Schalke drop to 8th place, 14 points off 4th placed Leipzig, and only 4 ahead of 10th placed Cologne now. And they really, really weren't helped by the performance of their young, prodigious goalkeeper, where they Schubert, on just his 7th Bundesliga game for the club, bless him. His kicking was absolutely atrocious. He ceded possession for Guerreiro's first, didn't he? And was easily beaten for Hazard's second goal. Did you have any sympathy for him at all in the game? That Torgan Hazard goal should have been kept out, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it dipped just in front of him, which wasn't great. And maybe he didn't expect Hazard to take it first time, because he could have burst into the box, but just hit it from the edge of the area. But I mean, that looked extremely rusty to me. That's the kind way of putting it. It might have just been rubbish.
Yeah, I mean, prior to the game, Wagner might have thought, okay, there's no Royce, Emre Can, Witsel, Zagadou, who have all been key components of Dortmund's season so far. And Sancho was only fit enough to play the final 10 minutes, right? But the other players stepped up in their absence, didn't they? Like you said, Julian Brandt, absolutely excellent. I called him the German Andy Reid on Twitter, which, you know, not very complimentary, but I actually meant, you know, technically vastly superior to player to most on the pitch. 5 tackles, 3 dribbles, 3 key passes, 2 assists. But man of the match, probably Guerrero. You know, when a fullback scores 2 goals, has a 92% pass accuracy, 7 defensive actions, and a dribble to boot, along with 4 shots. 4 shots. He's looked rejuvenated, hasn't he, recently, since Lucien Favre changed formation slightly, since he tinkered it to a 3-4-3, I believe. So yeah, he gets our man of the match. Any other notes? Anything we've not mentioned on this game, Pat? Or shall we move on to our loser?
No, I think it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so guys, let us know. Do you think Dortmund have it in them to win the Bundesliga? Only 4 points behind Bayern now. Let us know in the comments below. Let's move on.
Just before we get into our first loser of the week, a quick reminder to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hit that notification bell and you'll never miss a video, and we should have some good content coming out for you over the next few weeks. But right now we've got some miserable content for Eintracht Frankfurt fans who had to endure a battering at the hands of Borussia Mönchengladbach this weekend.
My beloved Eintracht Frankfurt. Of course, I got them in Football Daily's sort of Bundesliga roulette thing, so I was championing them on, but it didn't last very long, did it? Adi Hütter's Eintracht Frankfurt absolutely blown away at the Commerzbank Arena by title chasers, I think it's safe to say now, Borussia Mönchengladbach. They slipped to 13th in the table in the process. So Eintracht Frankfurt, from Europa League football contenders to sort of mid-table fodder now, unfortunately. I mean, they have lost some of their biggest stars in recent seasons, haven't they? So I suppose we should have some sympathy for them. Gladbach, on the other hand, leapfrogged RB Leipzig, who drew with SC Freiburg. Freiburg unlucky not to steal all the points in that game. They got a goal disallowed at the very end. So yes, Gladbach now in third, 2 points off Dortmund and 6 points off Bayern. So let's hope that Marco Rosa's men can continue this fine vein of form and really put in a title challenge in the running. It looks like that's going to be the case anyway. This was billed as one of the more competitive fixtures, wasn't it? But it didn't really prove to be the case. Alexandra Player putting the sword to the home side in the first minute with a sort of a well-taken goal. He did slip. I did think it was slightly fortuitous. But he probably deserves it, considering how good he's been all season. That was his 9th goal of the season. His 16th goal involvement in 21 starts. An understat actually thinks his attacking endeavours deserve 12 goals this campaign. And his expected goals and assist rate is 0.92 per 90 this season, which is the highest in the squad and better than the likes of Jadon Sancho. So a good reflection there, a good indication of how pivotal he's been to their form of late. And 6 minutes later, it looked like it could have been an absolute bloodbath, didn't it? Frankfurt conceding again, this time after a long switch out to left back Bensebaini. Am I saying that correctly, Pat?
Bensebaini.
Bensebaini, who was, I've got to say, absolutely superb for the entire 90. My knowledge on him, not really up to scratch, but I'll definitely be doing some more research on him post this game, because he was hugely influential from that left back position. So for the second goal, he hit the byline really nicely, drove it across for Marcus Thuram to turn in his 7th of the campaign. And that tactic of switching it out to Bensebaini was clearly something that Gladbach had worked on, because right back Stefan Leiner actually completed the second most long balls for an outfield player in the two teams, obviously excluding the goalkeepers. That's why I said outfield players. And more often than not, it was from that right hand side to the left, where Bensebaini was taking a really advanced position up. And surprisingly, it was the Algerian's first assist of the season, but he does have 5 goals to his name as well in 10 starts. So he is an attacking threat, to say the least. He's been sharing that sort of left-back berth with seasoned veteran Oscar Wendt, who's 34 now. So you'd imagine that these performances, alongside Wendt's age, means that Bensebaini is going to be, he's going to have cemented his place in that team, possibly for the run-in. So yeah, I was actually really impressed by Gladbach. But Eintracht just slipping into oblivion, Pat.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear they're going to end the season in mid-table now. Hertha and Union Berlin have both overtaken them on points, and they're actually only 5 clear of the relegation places, though they do seem to have got unlucky over the course of the season. However, in those opening stages, it was no surprise that they went 2 behind. They looked every part the team that have conceded 7 in the 2 games prior to lockdown, 4 to Leverkusen and 3 to Basel. Their midfielders were not at the races at all. Gibril Sau and Stefan Ilsanker, neither of them completed the game.
Yeah.
Gibril Sau didn't make a single defensive action, and Ilsanker had the lowest pass accuracy of any central midfielder on the pitch. So it was no surprise that Sau exited the field at half-time, and Ilsanker didn't see out the 90 either. Now, towards the end, after Gladbach were already 3-0 up following Bonsabani's penalty, they did improve a little bit, and they managed to get a goal back, which is actually a really, really nice one. They had 5 shots in the last 9 minutes, and Andre Silva, coming on as a substitute, got his 5th Bundesliga goal in 16 appearances. 8 of those have been from the bench to reduce the deficit.
Can I ask you, do you still think there's a player there? Do you still have faith that Andre Silva is going to, warrant that 38 million that AC Milan paid for him? Because I feel like he's slowly disappearing into the ether, mate.
I think it depends. I mean, Eintracht have been pretty bad this season, but 5 goals in 8 starts, plus a couple of substitute appearances, is pretty decent. I kind of think that if he stays there with Adi Hutter and they can improve the squad around him, he'll be totally fine. I don't know if he's ever going to be, worth 38 mil. It might just be that his career is too far gone. But I think he'll probably end up being like a perfectly useful centre forward in a top level side. And I mean, in this game, he provided the cutting edge that they couldn't the rest of the time. Like in the previous 80 minutes before he came on, only Bas Dost registered more than 1 effort for Frankfurt. He got 3. He did work pretty hard though, Dost, to be fair. He won 8 aerial duels, which was a match high, but he couldn't really bring anyone into the game. He didn't have much support around him. Even Filip Kostic, who's had a great season, failed to have a shot from open play. His only effort was a free kick parried away by Sommer. And things don't look any better for them going forward, because this Saturday they play Bayern Munich. So I fear a little bit for Eintracht. But to be honest, so long as they stay up and they can maybe work on the squad next year, I think that they'll probably be okay. But this weekend, the plaudits go to Gladbach, and so do the points.
We're rounding off the show, as always, then, with our star of the week. And sometimes on Football Daily, we're accused of ageism. As soon as a player turns 30, we tend to act like they don't exist. So we're going to put right some of those wrongs right now. Sounding out the efforts of a golden oldie, Vedad Ibsevic, Pat.
Yeah, well, there were a few people we could have picked out as standout performers this weekend. We could have gone for Benjamin Pavard or Alphonso Davies, who obviously impressed in Bayern's win over Union Berlin. But instead, we're going for Hertha Berlin forward Vedad Ibisevic, who is excellent as his side strolled to a surprisingly comfortable 3-0 away win at Hoffenheim. Haven't said that for a while. Anyway, 35, like Chris says, he is a veteran, but the Bosnian looked the sharpest player on the pitch following the break, perhaps realising that having lost a couple of months of his career with not much time left, he needs to make the most of the games that he can start between now and the end. So he put in a man-of-the-match performance, heading home on 60 minutes to double Hertha Berlin's lead, testing Oliver Baumann in the Hoffenheim goal on 2 more occasions, and he was just a threat and a nuisance all day long.
Yeah, and you just said there, making the most of it. He was super efficient in this game. That probably sums up his 90, his 80 even, because he was dragged off at the end. Bless him, he was absolutely blowing towards the end of the game. He managed 2 key passes in that time as well, while maintaining a pretty excellent 92% pass ac, which we don't see very often with centre forwards, do we? So yeah, he was super efficient at retaining the ball as well. Completed 2 of his 3 attempted dribbles. Not bad for the oldest outfield player on the pitch. Still beating his man. Still getting one up in his individual battle. And the result has supercharged Hertha's rise up the table. So they climb from 13th to 11th now. After their first win in 4 games. So this for them, a little bit unprecedented, but an ideal way to bounce back. Now 8 points clear of Fortuna Düsseldorf, who in the relegation playoff spot. And meanwhile, Hoffenheim have lost further ground on European places, falling 4 points behind Wolfsburg. They're now in 6th, with Wolfsburg claiming that impressive 2-1 win away at Augsburg. So there's still a lot to play for in the sort of middle third of the table. And that's what's been great about the Bundesliga this season, hasn't it? It's just been so topsy-turvy, and there's still plenty at stake from probably 14th upwards. Paderborn, though, pretty cooked, aren't they? And that's it for this week's ERU. It's great to be back. It's a good little win for us, Pat, to have 7 bits of content back out on Euro Football Daily. It's been a little bit of an uphill struggle, hasn't it, without Stat Wars and such. Is there any other content you want to plug that we've put out recently?
Some of the everything you need to knows, I think, have been really, really fantastic. Just a different kind of look for us. And there's one coming up in the next few weeks on Mike Ashley and why he's one of the most hated men in football, which I VO'd from a Michael McCubbin script. Really, really interesting one.
Nice. Probably a long video, that. Right, that's it. Look out for the tweet next week, guys. I don't know where I'm looking. Look out for the tweet next week, guys. And hopefully, we'll find a way to get you involved rather than 50 of you just chucking Bayern in the mix. All right, bye.